But it's wonderful to be back here. Tonight what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a couple of things. We're going to look at the scriptures, a brief look at the scriptures, have a look at one of the motifs, how God is described, how he presents himself. God is amazing. He is unknowable, but yet has invited us to get to know him. Unfathomable, but yet his spirit does search the mysteries of him. And he says and we know he sent his spirit to us. So we search the mysteries and the depths of God together. But one of the sort of motifs that he's presented, and I want to look at tonight, he's a bit like Strider from the book Lord of the Rings, which C.S. Lewis always said to Tolkien that Strider must have been inspired by Christ. Tolkien always rejected that because Tolkien didn't want to be put in a pigeonhole, but I think Lewis was right. So God has many names and many sort of presentations, and we're going to look at one of those tonight. Before that, what I do in ministry is that, and if we haven't met before or you haven't seen me in action before, how it works is I'll do my very best to point you out as respectfully as I possibly can, but I am likely to point at you. It's not an act of disrespect. In the Philippines, it's real funny. You do it upside down. So when people will know this, but like here, if you want somebody to come to you, do this. But in the Philippines, it's this way. It's rude to do this. So you got to go, come to me. But I'll point. You're Australian. We're friends. Except when it comes to rugby, of course. And cricket, which I can never forgive you for. But we are better than others. But the way I'll do it is I'll try and identify the clothing that you're wearing. I'll identify your gender, of course, first. And then I'll identify your clothing you're wearing as best I possibly can. What would help me is that if you just put your hand up as quick as you think I'm talking to you. Don't do it right at the start because that just looks messy. But the minute you've got your clothing described, whack your hand up. If you're with somebody, then just say, I'm here with my wife, I'm here with my husband. That's helpful because it gets really embarrassing when I say that couple over there and they go, no, we are not married. And I've made that mistake, trust me, more than once. So we're trying to get all the mistakes out of the road first. The other thing too is that my job, as I've said to this conference, my job is to hear from God as I best possibly can. We only prophesy in part, we only see in part. So it doesn't matter how specific or accurate this looks or may be, it's only a part. And so my job is to hear from God as best I possibly can, then to assemble that into a coherent phrase, something that you will understand, hopefully. And then to identify the right person, and for you, your job is to hear. It will be recorded, I guess. And I'll ask your name so that they can say at 2 minutes and 36 seconds, Tony spoke to so-and-so. So I'll ask your first name. And then your job is to hear, listen to the recording, to examine it. As I was saying today in the conference, that prophecy is the one gift of the Holy Spirit that we're required to judge and examine. So in 1 Corinthians 14 and in 2 Thessalonians 5, you'll see Paul talks about examining or judging prophecy. It's important because we rely upon it. We make decisions based on it. I do. And I know other people that have. I know people that have married, that have tried to have children again after having given up. Changed jobs, changed cities, changed nations because of prophetic words. Not all necessarily through me, but it's important. It's important if we do that we should judge it and examine it. So your job is to hear, to examine, to judge, and see where it fits in with the scriptures, which I'll talk a little bit again about. See where it fits in the scriptures, and then see where it fits in with your Jesus journey. Does it make sense? Now, sometimes it won't, and that's okay. I don't mind that moment. But you see where it fits in with your Jesus journey, and also submit it to your leaders, your people that you look up to, your friends, people that know you, and people that are shepherding you, and say, this is what Tony said, what do you think? And only at that point, when you've got 2 or 3 witnesses to that word, should you do anything about it. Very seldom would I ever make a decision based on one prophetic word or expect anybody else to do it. Even Mary, when she met with the angel, as I was saying this morning, it says that she stored those things in her heart, pondering what they might become of them. So even that she's met with an angel, she still thinks, okay, I'm not going to go out and, she'd have to do something, wouldn't she? But she waits, and all of history's changed. So, but definitely get the witnesses. Is that right? So I'll talk to you in common language. I won't say, thus saith the Lord. It'll be just like me chatting to you. You'll have to work out whether it's from God or not. My job is just to chat to you in a way that's like I say makes sense. Okay, so if I do my job, which I'm trying to do, and you do your job, we should have a good fun. And it might be very helpful to you. So we'll have a look at this picture of God. Everybody's thinking Psalm 23, and it's a good way to think. It's in the New American Standard Version that I read. It's 122 words. It takes about 20 seconds to read it. I think it's one of the most powerful pieces of scripture. Well, they're all powerful, of course. How can you compare one verse to the next? But I know it off by heart. I read it many times, and I speak it out lots of times. If I can't sleep, I just recite Psalm 23 to myself. Sometimes out loud, sometimes just in my mind. It's a nice way to fall asleep. You have all these sheep dreams, though. It's kind of weird. But it's an interesting psalm, and I may have mentioned a little bit about it here one other time. Did I? Have I? Nobody can remember? I can do the same message all over again. Yay. That's good. I'm not going to mention so much about Psalm 23, except to say this, that it's an interesting psalm because as you remember it, it starts off in the second person. The Lord is my shepherd. I shall not want. He makes me lie down. He leads me by still waters. He leads me in the paths of righteousness. He restores my soul. So it's second person. He's talking about someone else. But in verse 4, when David is talking about going through the valley of the shadow of death, it becomes first person. When you need God the most, when you need him so up close and personal, when death has cast a shadow on your life, he comes up close. He says, you are with me. I fear no evil because you are with me. It's cute. When I read this, I thought I'd never seen that before. And then I thought, I wonder how it's structured in Hebrew. I'm reading an English version of a Hebrew book. So I do what I always do when I want to know what the Hebrew says. I ring up a local synagogue. It's always funny because you remember when Jesus said, when it was said of Jesus that he speaks as one with authority, not as the scribes and Pharisees who don't speak with authority. It's true. Rabbis hate giving their opinion on something. They always say, so-and-so said this, or somebody would say that, or this is what has been written, but they very seldom will they say, this is what I think. This is, like Jesus said, you have heard it said, but I say to you. Powerful words. He's speaking with authority. So I ring up a synagogue in Auckland, a synagogue in Wellington. Neither of the rabbis will tell me what they think. All I'm asking is, how does it read in Hebrew? That's all I'm asking. I don't want their opinion. I just want to know how it reads. I finally in Dunedin get hold of a guy there. He was funny. He said, have you rang me because you know I'm a scholar of ancient Hebrew? I said, no, but that's very handy right now. I said, how does the psalm read? And he said, it's very different in Hebrew than it is in English because for two reasons. One, writing back then was very precious. It took a long time to write. Paper was expensive. In Jesus' time, one page of paper would cost a day's wages. And that A4 sheet of paper that you just toss off out of the computer or out of the photocopier, it was a day's wages. So when they wrote very, very sparsely. They wrote with purpose and intent. Secondly, because it took a long time and it wasn't a common skill to write, they dropped out all the words that we use in English. So it says, the Lord is my shepherd. It just says in Hebrew, Lord, my shepherd. I shall not want not. They kept it really brief. Makes me lie down by green pastures, lie down by green pastures. So all the little words, all the joining words that we use, I don't know what they're called, but they dropped them out. So I said, okay, so how does it start? Is it in the second person at the beginning? He said, yeah, second person. I said, what happens in the fourth verse? He said, it comes the first person. I fear no evil because you are with me. I said, isn't that amazing? That it changes. It becomes personal when we need him the most. When death casts a shadow over our lives, he comes up close and personal. And he said, I've never noticed that before. And I said, yeah, that's because the Bible's a living Bible. He said, you Christians think that you can get revelation, present day revelation on the Bible, and it changes it. And I said, no, it's not what we say. We say the Bible's a living and active word, and the Holy Spirit reveals it to us sometimes, just like now. He said, whatever. But it is the same. The fact is, it's just so nice. It's such a great picture. So the next slide, thanks. What we're really going to look at mostly is in Luke. In Luke chapter 15, verse 4 through to 6, Jesus is telling stories. And one of the stories he tells is about a shepherd having 100 sheep. Now, this kind of works for Kiwis, but you guys have got almost as many sheep as us nowadays. So, no sheep jokes. But he's saying you got 100 sheep. Now, that was a big herd. Now, if anyone has ever been to the Middle East, I was in Macedonia just recently and saw this thing acting out in front of me. 100 sheep's a big herd. It's 100, you imagine trying to keep track of 100 sheep. And they all look the same, but they're not sheep like we know them. They look like goats. Has anybody seen Middle Eastern sheep? They look like a goat. They're a bit ugly, really. But when we read this and all the pictures that are painted of this, it's a little fluffy little lamb. It makes you feel guilty about eating lamb, actually. It's so nice, that cute, that wee thing. Only for a little bit. I love lamb. But the fact is, it's a sheep he's talking about. And he says, if you have 100 and one gets lost, won't he leave the 99 in open pasture and go looking for it? Now, the sheep got lost. The sheep got lost. The sheep made a decision to go somewhere else. So the sheep's astray. And yet he says, the shepherd goes looking for him, leaving the 99 in safe pasture. And when he finds it, he places it on his shoulders. Now, picture that. Anybody carried a sheep on their shoulders? You should try it. You have? In a play or something, was it? No. In real life? Yes. Get out. You're mad. Fantastic. It's an olfactory experience. You carry a sheep on your shoulders, but you know you're doing it through your nose. There's two smelly parts of a sheep that are close to your nose. Their mouth. Sheep breath is bad. Bad. But their butts are that close to you as well. He comes back rejoicing with a smelly sheep on his shoulders. That's crazy. So the Lord is our shepherd. He's either looking for you or he's leading you. He's either leading you or he's looking for you. The two times that God uses shepherd as an example of himself, it's either that he's leading with you and coming up close in the darkest times of your life, or if you are astray, he's looking for you. When I became a Christian, there were lots of teachings on being in the perfect will of God. Made you anxious. Didn't know which way to go to work. Which way? Left or right? Do I have tea or coffee? Do I have sugar in my coffee? Is that so? It's just nuts. But this says he's either leading you or he's looking for you. This is a sheep that went astray, that took off, that said, I'm out of here. Now in New Zealand, in Kiwiland, the shepherds send a dog to go and find the sheep. Get away back! Bring it in! This shepherd goes looking for the sheep. And when they do find that sheep, they use a bit of hollow alkathene pipe and give it a bit of a hiding. You mongrel, get back inside the pen. Whack, whack. It's done in love, of course, but it's still a bit of a hiding. Not this shepherd. He doesn't tell the sheep off. He actually rejoices, tells his friends, come have a party. I've got a sheep finding party. Sheep found party. I've never been to one of those. And then he says there's more joy in heaven over one sinner who repents. The rest of this, they're 99 righteous. It doesn't mean that there's no joy in heaven over the 99 righteous. There's just more joy in heaven. So heaven's a happy place, like I said. Joy is the serious business of heaven. So he's either looking for you or leading you. And it takes a lot of the pressure of finding the perfect will of God. We can chill, we can relax, we're in good hands. We serve a caring God. So we can say, okay. And if you look at another picture, which is not in these verses, if you look at another picture in John 10, where Jesus does all these different, kind of almost like the Rubik's Cube description of himself. At one point he's the gate, one point he's the shepherd, one point he's it's all over the place. Amazing verse, I'm not mocking it. But he says, my sheep come in and out and they find pasture. So there's a bit of latitude. We can come in and out and find pasture. We don't have to buy the blue car. We don't actually have to get that particular job or buy that particular piece of whatever it is. There's room to move. If anybody's seen the Adjustment Bureau, it's a bit like the Adjustment Bureau. He continues to remake the plans. He's good. He's good like that. He's God. So he's leading us or he's looking for us. The Lord is our shepherd. Either way, we're in good hands. It works out good in the end. I've read the book. I'm watching the movie. I'm part of the movie. But I've read the book. It ends good.